scared of the future, and I hate my past. Present hurts too much, but I know it won't last. No, it won't last.
Welcome to MENTAlk. I'm your host, Dakota, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this journey. Here at MENTAlk, we dive deep into the often overlooked world of men's mental health, exploring topics that matter to you. From personal stories to insightful guest interviews, we'll cover everything from anxiety, depression, and PTSD. My mission, to break the stigma and promote mental wellness one conversation at a time. Let's embark on this journey together and start making a difference.
I've got a brain that wants me dead. I've got a woman that wants me in bed, and I'm somewhere in between, trying not to blow my brains out.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to MENTAlk. We are starting off today with my story, the beginning of everything that's happened to me, or vaguely what I remember of everything, because I was really young when a lot of these things happened, and I remember a lot of the stories that were told, and they constantly get told to me, so like we talk about it, here and there, and we've talked about it before, so I guess that's really where I get a lot of this from, and then remembering some of the things that's happened with everything. So it really, I guess, the beginning of everything that happened was, and to skip ahead of like all the short stuff, so it's not so detailed, of course, because I mean it is going to be detailed, but it's just so this doesn't really bore you, because a lot of it is just me moving from state to state and going from school to school, growing up at a young age, and not really being able to make friends in a lot of these areas because of, we were constantly moving, and, so like we didn't really stay anywhere until, like my sixth grade year. I think we actually moved back up here from fifth grade, and then I've been here since. So fifth high school, and then now, of course, is where I still reside at, North Carolina. But, of course, I was born in North Carolina, so that's where, I was born here, but not raised here, because, like I said, we traveled back and forth all the time and moved from state to state, and to go from where we were at, or where I really want to start at, is moving to Florida. We moved to Florida when I was young. I was really little, and I remember us walking into Walmart to go tell my aunt that we were leaving. The first time, it was actually might have been the first time. Actually, it might have been when we were at my grandma's house. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember because I get those two mixed up on when we really told her that we were leaving. Told my grandma, my aunt, when we were moving to Florida, and I'm almost positive the very first time that we went was, like when we first told her. I'm pretty sure we were in my grandma's yard when we told her we were leaving, because then we left like a couple of days after that, and I just remember all of them crying and breaking down and everything. And me and my brother were like playing in a tree in my grandma's front yard, so it's kind of my granny's front yard, really. And so it's kind of I remember that key aspect of it. And then I remember moving down to Florida, and everything was still good, like it was better. I mean, what I remember of it, it was good. I remember us moving down to Florida. We moved down to like Orlando or somewhere like that. And I remember, like, when we moved down to Florida, my mom was still walking at the time, and my father he was around. So, I mean, he was still there. And I remember, like, I had everything. I remember like, growing up, we had a lot. And I don't know, I can't really say, I don't know what a whole lot is, I guess, at that age. But I remember having a GameCube. I remember us living in a nicer house growing up, like when we moved down to Florida. So I remember those aspects of things. And then, I remember a decline. Like, I remember a decline in my mom's health. So she went from she was working like third shift all the time. So she worked at like Waffle House and Cracker Barrel, if I'm not mistaken, both the places. And, she worked at both of those places when we lived in Florida. And then I remember my dad was I mean, he was working, so I don't remember a whole lot besides the fact that he drank a lot. Um, and like while we were down in Florida, I just like I said, I remember when like she started to really decline because like we were still living in the house that we were at and everything was still going good. But I remember like she would wake up and like her body couldn't move. Um, or like when she did go to move, she would stumble a whole lot. And I remember us staying in that house for a little while. And then, I vaguely remember us going in and out of the hospital a lot. I remember her staying in the hospital a lot, trying to figure out what was going on. And I think when all of this happened, really, I think my aunt and them came back down to, and they helped us move back up to North Carolina, and to try to figure out what was going on with my mother. And I remember some of those things, and I guess that's probably like the hardest thing because a lot of my memory doesn't come from there. It's really like after this story. It's like after all of this has happened, um, when really I guess, really my mind remembers a lot of the trauma, or I really don't know why I don't remember a whole lot of that. I just remember we were in and out of the hospital a lot, and that's really about it. I remember my dad drank, but nothing crazy went on. Um, I don't think I really don't remember. And then growing up, after we figured out what was going on with my mom, she was diagnosed with CIDP, which stands for chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. That's a or mouthful, but I really don't. Other than that, that's what I remember of that. So I guess that's it. But really, once we she got diagnosed, she started getting somewhat better. She started going through like all her therapies and all of that good stuff. Well, I remember us moving to a place in Low Gap, and I remember this house so much, like so well, because I don't know. I had a lot of memories there. I guess I don't know. We lived on like this huge, like this farm area where there was like horses and things like that. So I remember going to school, going to like Cedar Ridge or Copeland, one of those two schools, and I remember all of that. And then once we were living there, we stayed there for a couple years, maybe more. And uh, I remember we vaguely, I guess, my father got a phone call from his brother or whoever. I don't know why. I really don't know why we ended up leaving that place. But I know that when we did, my brother and father went down at the same time. So they got on like a Greyhound bus and left and everything. And then uh, from there, I remember like me and my mom stayed back. So we stayed back. We stayed at the house. Um, and actually, we didn't stay in the house that we went to. We actually stayed with a friend of theirs. His name was like Dell or something. And I remember us staying there, and I spent Halloween here by my like up in North Carolina by myself while my brother and father were down in Florida or going to Florida, whatever it was. But I remember that so well because like my mom, she spent like crazy amount of money on just candy, I guess, and just bought me all the snacks and candy, and we binge watched like Halloween movies and things like that until like we left. So that year I didn't go trick or treating, but uh, I didn't go with anybody because my mom was handicapped and I was young. I do remember I was just really little, and because like when she was diagnosed, I was 6 years old. Um, and I remember before all of this happened, before they decided to move to Florida and go to Florida and everything. I know Brendan, my brother, and father were already going down. I remember me and my mom. We went into Walmart to tell my aunt, and like when you walk into Walmart, it's still the same way. Still kind of similar to how it was back then, I guess. But like when you walk into the front left side where the grocery section is, you keep walking down, and before you get to the aisles, there's like that little center section where like they have pallets full of stuff like drinks, sodas, like juices and chips and things like that going down in different stacks. And I remember that we had called for my aunt, and somebody went back to get her, and because this is when she worked at Monterey Walmart. And I remember when she came out, like we told her that we were leaving, and like, you know, it felt like all hell broke loose. like she was bawling her eyes out, and that was really the second time, and I remember that more than I do any other time. Is like when we walked in and told her she had just, lost it, like started crying and everything, and we told her we were leaving. And so like after that, I know we left to go to Florida. I don't know why we went to Florida. I just know we ended up going to Florida, and I guess we stayed with my aunt. Um, at the time, my aunt and other uncle, my dad's brother. But I remember that, and then like once we get to there, it's like kind of like when all hell broke loose, I guess, because like I feel like when we were down there, everything was good at first. I remember that everything was great, and then we moved. We moved a final time to somewhere in Florida, and I can't remember where we were at in Florida, but I remember that we moved a final time in a city in Florida, and had this nice house because like we were all living together. It was like me, my brother, my mom, dad, um, and then my dad's side of the family, his brother, his wife at the time, and then like their three or four kids. And I remember all of us living together and everything was going good. I remember us going to school and things like that. And then I just remember, I mean, it was hard because of my mother was handicapped. So it was a lot harder because like she was the one watching the kids while I guess they all worked or did whatever. And I thought everything was going good. I thought that everything was being, I guess, abided by, like the law. I guess they were being law abiding citizens, but in reality, I guess that they really wasn't. um, I remember going to school, and I remember my mom like struggling to. I really remember my mom like struggling to get us food, and they would bring us food and stuff like that. But it was like really hard on her, hard on them. I guess I don't know. But then I really don't remember this because it was so long ago. But I was younger, so I don't really remember a lot of things besides bits and pieces of it. Um, but I do remember that like when we would go to school, she would like my mom would give us like notes, and we had like um what DSS or whatever that is, like CPS come down. And I remember they came into the house because she would bring us letters. Like she would give us letters to take to school, and then like CPS came out and they did an investigation, did everything. But then didn't seem like nothing came from that at all. Well, we were trying to leave. I remember that me, my mom, and brother were trying to leave. Like they called a taxi or whatever it was, and we were trying to go. We were trying to get out of there, and I guess something had happened. And I guess my dad was leaving with us too, because I think at this time I think he was trying to get away too from the same time, but I really don't know. I don't remember it. I remember a whole lot of it, but I remember when this did happen that like they called a taxi, um, and everything like that, and from there, the taxi cab driver, the guy who was coming to pick us up or whatever, called the cops because my uncle would not let me go. Like he would not let me leave. He did not want me to go, and I remember him like having like a death grip on me, like basically holding me as tight as he could and hugging me and stuff and like bawling his eyes out and would not let me go. Well, after this, like the cops had showed up. Like everything had like hit the fan. Like everything had blown up at this time, whatever, right? So cops come, and we're all inside the house, and I remember like all these cops showing up. And I guess at this time, like they were already investigating my father and uncle and aunt and all of us, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, like all these cops showed up, like SWAT team and helicopters. I remember them like flying over and seeing us like I guess on TV, like the helicopters were flying or whatever. But it was kind of crazy because, we're there. And I remember that my uncle is sitting in the bedroom, sitting in the bedroom and has the window cracked open, like, and there's a screen. And he's sitting there talking to these cops, like whatever, right? And I remember that so vividly that it's kind of crazy, I guess. And anyway, from there it went crazy. I remember that the cops had like busted in, and you guys are going to hear my dogs. Sorry, they're over here playing with their chew toys or whatever. But I remember that the cops had like busted in, and my dad had hid underneath, like in between like a two king size beds and like a mattress over top of them and stuff. And he was the last one to be found. I remember he was the last one to be taken out. And anyway, they busted through and arrested all of them. Arrested like my aunt and my uncle and my dad. I remember them arresting them. And at the time, I guess they were going to take my mom, but my mom really couldn't do nothing. Like she was at this time, like she was sick and she couldn't walk. She's handicapped. But like she wasn't leaving the house with them. She was taking care of all of the kids. And there was me, my brother, and like it was a three or four of my cousins. I can't really remember because, it was so long ago, I guess. But I remember that they took all of us away. So they took us all away from her or away from our parents or whatever. So they arrested them, took us all away. And I remember my mom, I guess she called my aunt, and my aunt came down to help her. And one of my mom's best friends had come to help us and like help them or help her. And while they were taking us away, they didn't let us stay with them. So they took us to like this place or whatever and started talking to us and everything. And from there like we were I guess we were being investigated or talked to or interviewed or whatever they were wanting to figure out with us kids, I guess. Well, they took us in like this room, and then from there we were taken away from our parents. Like we didn't get to see them. And then we were going from like house to house. Like we went from like one house at this time, and I guess now looking back on it, it was foster care. So CPS took us away, took us to like foster care. So like we went to like one house, and then like we would go to like another house. And at this time we were like all split up besides me and my brother. So I didn't see none of my cousins or none of them at all. And it was just me and my brother. And so they took us away, and I remember, like I said, we went from like house to house to house, and then finally, I guess we got like a placement, like a foster care system, at like a house, like a foster care home or whatever it is down in Florida, and it was called Harbinger. And I remember this place so vividly because like I did not do good there. I didn't do good at all. I remember going to school because like we were way. Gosh, my mom didn't get us back for, it felt like years. It really felt like years, but it really wasn't that long. I know it wasn't that long, but it really did feel like years. And I just remember, like, while we were in school, like, I didn't do good at all. Like, I was failing. I didn't care. I was so mad at the world. And, like, why I couldn't be with my mother. Like, why couldn't I be with my family, And it didn't go good. Well, I remember that, like, while we were down there, like, they were so... Like, the people were so nice, but so mean at the same time. Like, if you didn't do certain things, like, you were getting in trouble. Like, at certain points, it went from, like, if we got in trouble, we were scrubbing the floors with, like, toothbrushes and things like that. Like, we really had to clean. And, like, it was kind of like a punishment. It wasn't my fault that we got taken away from my parents. It wasn't our fault. I mean, so they're like, treating us like we're prisoners. And it felt so unreal. And like I did get to do a lot of things there. So like I know that they were good to us, but I know at the same time they really were strict on their punishments. And I know that like I remember going to like the park and seeing like John Cena and like one of the big like wrestlers and stuff like that. And I remember us going to a park there for some reason. And like a lot of us kids got to go to that. I remember us going on like trips and things, but I know I didn't do good. And I guess that's kind of like, I guess that's kind of crazy, because like I had to grow up really early because, my mom was diagnosed with CIDP. And so like I grew up, like when she was diagnosed, I was 6, right? And so I grew up so early, and then getting taken away, it was just, I don't know, it was different. And now I'm a lot more comfortable talking about it. Because it's really not like a big issue to me anymore, I guess, because like I guess I've went through it, I've grown up, so now I kind of know like, hey, wait a minute, what we were living in was not great. And it wasn't by any means. Like the house was disgusting. Like after when they came and taken us and like seeing like the case pictures and stuff like that, I guess like when you're living there you really don't realize it, but like to see like the case pictures and things later on, like no food in the house, no like a lot of nasty stuff, I guess. I don't really want to go into detail about a whole lot of it, I guess, but it was just nasty. And I remember my mom coming and visiting us, and with my mom's friend. Her name is Faith, by the way. And so if you hear me say Faith, that's what I'm talking about, I guess. But anyway, I remember that they would come and see me. So my mom and Faith would come down and see me and my brother, because me and my brother were still together at the same time. Like, we wasn't with any of our other family, but me and my brother stayed together the entire time. And and at this time, we were older. I don't really know. I can't really remember how old I was. Maybe might have been 8, maybe 10. I really don't remember. I have no idea how old I was, but I just remember all of this like being taken away. And I remember that they would come down and visit us, and like, it was always, hey, we're going to get you back. Hey, I'm going to get you back. And I guess the system fought them so hard on every little thing that they do. And like hearing stories like my mom and her friend tell it, like tell us stories of like how strict they really were, how strict CPS was with them, and like the court systems and everything. Like, I remember that they had to go in and like rip up carpet at their house and put in new floors. I remember that they had to they had to make sure that they had beds for us. They had to make sure that they had like sheets on those beds and all kinds of stuff before they can even bring us home. Well, I guess months and months and months of this went by, and finally, I remember my mom and them coming home, or coming to see us, and it was like my birthday or whatever, and they brought me like a cake. Well, they couldn't give me the cake, and I remember that they walked through, and they said, "Look, I'm giving them this cake," and I got it. I got the cake. Everything was good, and that was the day that my mom looked at us and said, "You get to come home. You get to be with us now." And like I said, this was months. It had to have been like at least a year. I feel like maybe more, but I really can't remember. And it was so insane because like when we got to come home, everything was so different. My mom was you know by herself, of course. Like, we were living with my mom's friend and her kids, like her older kids and everything. And I remember us living there for years, going to school, um, and doing. I felt like, well, what I would consider great in life, because I made a lot of friends, and we lived in this nice community, so I had a lot of friends, and we lived there for years. And then I guess like my mom, she started doing way better. And then we moved to a place in Ocala. We I guess she told her friend that she was leaving, and we ended up moving to our own place in Ocala. So where we lived at to Ocala was probably about 45 minutes, maybe an hour away, maybe a little bit longer. But I remember that when we moved, I remember her friend like crying and everything. And at this time, it was just me, my brother, and my mom. My mom's still in a wheelchair. She's taking care of us by herself. And I remember that we moved to this place in Ocala. It was called it was an apartment complex down in Ocala, and um, Steeplechase is the name of it. And I remember us growing up, like moving there, and everything was like so much better. Like, I mean, it felt like life was finally back on track. Like, we were with we were with her friends and their kids, and everything was great. Like, once we came home, it was like everything just got so much better. And we moved from, I think it was Deltona is where she lived, Deltona to Ocala, and so we lived there. We moved there. We were doing great in Steeplechase. We had this nice apartment. Um, my mom started, she was getting help from a lot of people. We got furniture, we got beds, we had a TV and things like that. And it felt like we were really doing great. And then from there, I went to school. I remember us um, going to school and everything. And it was just a grand old time. And I'm almost positive I was probably in the third or fourth grade. So whatever age you were in, that third and fourth grade, I don't know, but I remember everything was going good. I just remember that, and I remember that we life was going great. And then I guess months down the road, or a year down the road, or whatever, everything just decided to go straight downhill again. Um, and I don't know if it was really before my dad got out, or like right around that time. I know that he was getting out, and we were visiting and things like that. But I remember I remember that everything just started to slowly go downhill again. And I don't know if it was necessarily, I really don't know what it was, but I remember, and one of these stories, I want to point out before this ends, and I don't want you guys to look at this bad because I'm gonna continue this on later on as well. But um, one of the stories one of the things that I remember the most and when I'm saying this is like going downhill, and what I remember the most is that we went to Walmart, and my mom had like a power wheelchair, and it was me and my brother. We were at Walmart, like we went to Walmart because it wasn't so far from us. We would walk there to grocery shop, and like it was a lot of easy access to like where we could actually travel and do things. So like I rode in the back of a wheelchair, and my brother sat in my lap, and like I had my legs up on the wheelchair. And I remember us going to do things like that. I remember us going to like Walmart and like I guess Target or whatever else is around these areas. But I just remember stores down there, and we would travel and get our shopping done and everything, come back home. Well, I remember that the last time that one of the last times that we went to Walmart, and I don't know what happened, but I guess my mom was just really going through something as well because it's hard, and I can't, and there's no fault to my mother. I don't I don't have bad regards to my mother. I love my mom, and she's always been there for me, and she's been there for my kids and my wife, and she's a great human being. And it was just crazy times, I guess. And when I remember we went to Walmart, and she was bending over shopping for something, and like she fell out of her chair and hit her face. Like she just hit her face. Well, and I guess that was really the start of everything, because from there, I started to see more. I started to see more of everything starting to happen, and she fell on her face because like she was. And I don't know what was going on in her life or what it is, and I have no idea. But I just remember this, and I remember her friend was there, that we called. Like she was there. I guess she's seen her, or I called her, and I don't know how she ended up getting there or whatever. But I remember like us getting in the car and everything, and us going home, and really nothing else happened of it. I just remember her sleeping it off, and I guess they didn't really know that she was messed up or whatever. But I guess she took one too many Xanaxes, and nothing really happened from there. I just remember it ending basically, and then to continue the story, I guess it's when my father came home, like when he got out of prison for the final time. I get like the final time while we were down in Florida after all these years. I remember him getting out of jail. And guys, I'm gonna continue this in the next story because there's gonna be a whole nother one. This one's a pretty long episode as of right now, so I'm gonna finish telling you guys the rest of my story, so that way you can kind of paint a picture of how everything started out. Remember, guys, if you have any questions or problems or anything, just remember to reach out to me at mentalkpod@gmail.com. That is my email. And then you guys could just reach out to me, and I'll be glad to help you